The shadow in the light. Jade was used to being followed, but tonight felt different. For the past 5 years, millions of eyes had watched her through their glowing screens. They watched her transform her face with makeup, watched her life unfold on her Glamour Jade channel. Her fan base had skyrocketed during the lockdown, and she liked to joke that her signature emerald eyeliner gave her wings to fly higher than she ever imagined. And now, with 50 million followers, she was on top of the world. At least, that's what it looked like from the outside. Tonight, Jade was celebrating her milestone with a rooftop party overlooking the city skyline. A-list celebrities mingled with influencers, music pounded through the speakers, and trays of champagne floated among them. She'd had her manager organize everything, but the sense of accomplishment was still hers. The flashing lights, the laughter, the congratulatory smiles, it all reflected the dream life she'd built. Except, of course, for the missing piece, her ex-girlfriend, Chloe. As the night wore on and the first hint of dawn broke the horizon, the energy of the party began to fade. Jade, feeling the ache in her feet from her impossibly high heels, decided it was time to slip away. Her penthouse was only a couple of blocks away, and she craved the solitude of her bed rather than anyone else's company tonight. She took the long way home, savoring the quiet streets and the cool morning air. The city's buzz, which had pulsed all night, now dwindled, leaving only the hum of distant traffic and the flicker of the last few streetlights. But something was off. As she walked, she noticed her shadow stretching long in front of her, cast by one of the street lamps. A second shadow moved in tandem with hers. Jade blinked, rubbed her eyes, no doubt smearing some of her carefully applied makeup, and glanced around. She wasn't imagining it. Someone was following her. Instinctively, she turned around, preparing herself for the worst. She expected a menacing figure in a hoodie, someone lurking in the shadows, but instead, she saw a teenage girl. The girl looked awkward, shy even. She was wearing an oversized Glamour Jade hoodie, jean shorts, and dirty sneakers. Her hair, dyed a deep blue, fell in messy waves around her face. Jade's breath caught when she noticed the girl's makeup. Emerald eyeliner, perfectly winged, just like her own. "Oh my God, Jade. It's really you." The girl's voice was excited, trembling with disbelief. Jade's shoulders relaxed slightly. It was just a fan, an overeager one, but harmless, surely. She smiled and said, "Hey there, want to take a selfie?" The girl squealed with delight and quickly moved in for a hug. Jade hesitated before awkwardly hugging her back, her mind already calculating how she could politely excuse herself. The girl's grip was firm, a little too tight. When Jade glanced at her watch, it was 5:57 a.m. What was this kid doing out here, alone, so early? "How'd you find me?" Jade asked, trying to keep the conversation light despite the growing unease twisting in her stomach.
"Oh,
"I saw your Instagram story and figured out the location of the party based on the view. I've been waiting for you to leave for a while now."
creepy."
"That's impressive," Jade managed, forcing a laugh. "I'm your biggest fan," the girl continued, her eyes wide with admiration. "Actually, I was your first follower." Jade raised an eyebrow. That was a bold claim, one she'd heard a dozen times before. Still, something in the back of her mind tugged at her. Her first follower had been an account with a weird username, something like Peachy Dreamer 88. "That's me," the girl said proudly. Jade's smile faltered. She'd never told anyone about that account, not even her closest friends. She remembered that username, how it had followed her almost immediately when she first started posting content. She had always thought it was just a random bot, but now, "That's incredible," Jade said, but she could feel her pulse quickening. She glanced around, looking for a way out. "I'm really flattered, but I'm exhausted and I need to get home." "Oh, I know," the girl said, stepping closer, matching Jade's every movement as she tried to inch away. "I know everything about you. I've been following you since the beginning. I'm so glad you finally broke up with Chloe." Jade flinched at the mention of her ex's name. The breakup was still fresh, and hearing it from this girl, this stranger, made her skin crawl. She kept walking, hoping the girl would take the hint and leave her alone. "You deserve someone who really knows you," the girl continued, her voice softer now. "Someone who understands who you are." Jade didn't respond. She crossed the street, her penthouse looming just ahead. But as she reached for her key card, the girl suddenly blocked her path, her face lit up with a knowing smile. "You live here, right?" the girl asked casually, nodding toward the building. Jade's heart sank. She had been careful. No one knew where she lived. "I'm going to a friend's," she lied, trying to remain calm, though her fingers began twisting a lock of her hair, a nervous habit she hadn't indulged in for years. The girl just smiled, her eyes glinting. "You should really change your password, Jade. I can't believe you're still using the one you made in middle school." Star Queen 12. Seriously? Jade's breath caught at her throat. How could she possibly know that? Only her closest friends knew that password, and she hadn't used it in years. Panic set in. The girl turned to leave, walking away as casually as she'd appeared, but Jade's voice caught her. "Wait," she called, her words slipping out before she could stop them. "What's your name?" The girl paused, looking over her shoulder with a sad smile. "It doesn't matter," she said softly. "You've always known me." Jade watched, frozen in place, as the girl continued walking. Just as the streetlights flickered off, Jade caught a glimpse of a small brown birthmark on the back of the girl's calf. Her heart stopped. Jade instinctively glanced down at her own leg, where the same birthmark marked her skin. It was like staring at a ghost. No, it was something far worse. Jade had always been her biggest fan, after all. Jade stood motionless, her legs refusing to carry her any further. The early morning air had turned cold against her skin, but the chill running down her spine had nothing to do with the weather. The girl, no, she couldn't bring herself to think of her as just a girl, had disappeared down the street, her figure fading into the distance like the remnants of a dream. But this wasn't a dream. It was real. Jade's eyes fell back to her leg, to the birthmark that mirrored the one she had just seen. A knot twisted in her stomach. She quickly turned, her heart racing, and bolted for her penthouse. Her fingers shook as she fumbled for her key card, finally jamming it into the slot. The door clicked open, and she slipped inside, locking it behind her. She leaned against the door, trying to catch her breath, her pulse pounding in her ears. "What the hell just happened?" she whispered to herself, but her mind was racing too fast to answer. She stumbled to her bedroom, slamming the door shut behind her, as if that could somehow keep her safe from what? From her? From herself? Jade collapsed onto her bed, clutching her head in her hands. Her thoughts tumbled one over the other, none of them making sense. She replayed the conversation in her mind. Every detail, every word. "You've always known me." The girl's voice echoed in her ears, her eerie familiarity, the way she knew everything about Jade, more than anyone should. And then the birthmark, that impossible, stupid little birthmark. She reached for her phone, her fingers hovering over the screen. She wanted to text someone, call someone, but who could she even explain this to? Her friends? Her manager? They'd think she was losing it. Maybe she was. After all, hadn't she been under so much pressure lately? The breakup, the constant eyes on her, the endless demands of her growing fame? Jade set the phone down, staring at it, the screen dark and silent. Her reflection faintly stared back at her, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't recognize the woman looking back. Slowly, She sank into her pillow, her heart still racing but exhaustion finally setting in. Her body was heavy, her eyelids even heavier, but her mind kept spinning. As she lay there, curled up in the sheets, one last thought gnawed at her. Had she been the one following herself all along? And as she drifted into uneasy sleep, a single image lingered in her mind, her shadow, stretching long in the early dawn, not alone but accompanied by another, identical in every way. Her biggest fan, herself.